So let's continue to what happened on the 22nd of July last year in Oslo and Utøya. Around 3:15 on the 22nd of July last year, there was a white van coming up the road and turned into the parking lot in front of one of the government's building. And parked there, and out of the vehicle come a police officer. He went into the back of the car, did something, closed the car, locked it, and he walked away with a gun in his hand. Of course, the security force in the government building was a little bit baffled. What happened here? Everybody got respect for a police officer. And about 5 minutes later, exactly 3:25, 22 seconds, the bomb went off. It's about 1 ton of ANFO, which is equivalent to about 300 to 400 kilos of TNT. Within the same minute, we got the first call to our control room. AMK stands for Emergency Medical Communication Central. So AMK is what we use as an acronym in Norway for our control room. And within the first couple of minutes, we got more than 80 calls, and it was only available to answer about 40 of them. The problem was that the calls was something fell from the roof. Several people are injured. Some glass is falling down. A building has collapsed. An explosion is a working accident. A person is unconscious and some kind of seizure. How do you recognize this is a bomb? In retrospect, just the sheer number of calls should make alarm bells going off. And that happened within a couple of minutes. But there was no call saying that this is actually a bomb going off outside the building. So this is an aerial photograph of Oslo city, and I marked where the bomb went off. The problem was that some of the first calls come from down here. And then we got calls from all around the city within half a mile radius. And very soon we found that there was a cluster of injuries around that building. So wrongly we thought that this was the place where the bomb has gone off. So we dispatched all our units to that area. So for a couple of minutes we thought wrongly that that was the place where the bomb has gone off. And as you can see on the lower left corner, a lot of people standing around, a lot of confusion. People was coming out from the government building to that area. Very uncertain. Are there another bomb going off? What's happening? I want you to look at the picture down on the left-hand side. You see a lot of people standing around that corner. Very short time later on, the same corner, no people. But there's a bus there. So the story is how to hijack a bus. So they had a lot of walking wounded. You couldn't start putting walking wounded in all our ambulances because we got a lot of people who need to go in an ambulance as well. So one of the paramedics says that, oh shit, went out in the street, stopped the first bus has come, went in and said, no, I'm your boss. So the driver said, okay, just have to call my dispatcher. So they stopped the bus, and everybody who comes who can walk was instructed to go into that bus. So they put 18 walking wounded in that bus, get hold of some volunteer health professionals that was there, put them in as well, and send the bus over to a walking clinic downtown in Oslo. So in a few minutes they empty up that space. There's a bizarre twist to this story. That bus has an automatic announcement system for stations. And part of the route that was driving down to that walking clinic was the route for the bus. So the GPS system said, next station is, so they had 3 or 4 stations they didn't stop at. So it's right. And the driver was later interviewed, and he said, well, it wasn't too bad because I'm used to drive the night bus in Oslo. So, so again, this is a picture of where the bomb went off. And this picture is taken very, very early after the bomb. You see no people there, except the fireman. So how can a fire officer be there that quickly? You see he's a red color. That means that he's a chief. So we mark the chief with either red or yellow. The reason is that the building you see here is the main fire station in Oslo. That's 100 meters away from the blast. And all the windows on this side was of course blown in. All the gates down here, where they had the trucks, has fallen down. So they actually had to start to clean up the gates to get out. And some actually walked up, and that fireman was actually one of the first one at the bomb site. And suddenly people coming out from buildings, walking through, sheer panic broke out. What is nice was that people starting to do first aid. Public people starting to do first aid, police officers do first aid, everybody do first aid, which was very nice.
Ronald, was there a concern for a secondary bomb?
Yes, of course it was. At the moment, I think everybody was more concerned about all the people who was injured on the street, but it's always concerned about the secondary. So initially, after the first call, I sent about 13 units into the city of Oslo to respond to it. But after about very few minutes, I realized this is the big thing. So everything we got was sent in. And we're starting to alert the services around us to get more units in. So the principle now is to get as much resources you can get in the short amount of time into Oslo. It's easier to turn them around, send them back, instead of waiting for them to come in. So we got altogether about 59 ambulances, including 2 of our PTS buses. We got 3 air ambulances. We do not bring the helicopters into the city, but every helicopter has a car. So they brought the doctor and his equipment and the paramedic into the city to help up. 2 seeking helicopters from Search and Rescue Service was on standby, and we got 11 ambulances from the volunteers, Red Cross. And this means that some of our areas close to the Swedish border had no ambulances at all. So the Swedes sent ambulances across the border into Norway to help us. So that works very well. About 5 o'clock, just after 5 o'clock, we went through all the building. There were no new patients. Everybody was evacuated, and we found out that, okay, what now? Everybody thinking about what happened next. So we make a secondary or a tertiary search of the buildings. We only find dead people. We're starting to send units from other services home. Our crews was actually resupplied the vehicle. They got food, some rest. And that's about 5 o'clock. Just remind that telephone number. That keep it in your head. And 8 people were killed. All killed on site. 10 people was taken to hospital, and at least 80 people was treated in that walking clinic. That's the number we got, but probably there is more. One interesting thing is that the first patient from the blast actually walked into that clinic by himself 7 minutes after the bomb went off. So nobody get a call. The patient just walk in and present themselves, something has happened. Technically, this was not a disaster. We had all the equipment we need, we got resources in abundance. So technically, this was not a disaster because we got all the equipment we need. The first patient was out within 10 minutes. So, what's next? We sat down, starting to reorganize. I was down there, we starting to get in a small plaza close to the bomb site and say, okay, what are we doing now? Then something happened. So what is Utøya? That actually means the outer island. Ut means out, Øya means island. So Utøya means the outer island. It's owned by the Labour Party and they have a meeting there every summer for youth, age 14 to 18 years old, some older. And there was about 650 to 700 people on the island that day. The weather was it's raining, it was cold. The water, that's freshwater lake. It's 14 degrees centigrade in the water. What's that in Fahrenheit? It's cold. It's cold. Absolutely, it's cold. A little map. This is Oslo Center. This is where the bomb went off. And the perpetrator, after he left, you saw him walking with his pistol in his hand. He walked a couple of blocks, get into his second car, and drove up here to Utøya. I want you to notice this yellow line here. This side is the service I'm working in. This is a different ambulance service and also a different control room. Okay? 8 minutes past 5, he arrived at the island. The same time we're starting to reorganize. And he killed the first one about 5 minutes later. And about 7:24, the first call come into the control room in Drammen, the other's control room. And within a couple of minutes, they said it's come a tsunami of calls. Because everybody got a cell phone. And everybody dialed the emergency number for health. Some dialed number for the police. So actually the control rooms was actually stuck with calls and they couldn't answer them at all. So they sent an ambulance and the first one was there approximately 3 minutes to 6. And they stopped down, they could see over to the island and they heard gunshots. And later on they said that they also thought they saw a bullet hitting the water. And suddenly people started to come ashore, swimming, cold water. And locals with boats starting to bring people ashore. And these are people for everything just wet to multiple gunshots. So this is how it looked like down at the beach. The island is what you see behind there in the horizons. It's about 600 meters across that sound. And most of the young ones, they actually had to swim from the other side of the island. That means they swam maybe 1,200 meters, maybe a mile in 14 degrees water. So every one of them was more or less hypothermic. It was a very quick job. They just maybe some painkiller, wrap them up, get them in the ambulance and get away. Just some very quick triage, that's it. After a while, the police said you had to evacuate because it's safe, place wasn't safe. And the reason for it is here. If you see that silver van up in the left-hand corner. That was the car the perpetrator used to drive out here. And you see in the middle of the pictures that's where he was working. By the way, I was not here. I was still back in Oslo. Okay, so I was never at Utøya. But again, it's about 20 meters up to the car. So they decided we cannot abandon the kids coming in. So they continue working with the van standing there. What makes it scary was that when you look into the rear of the van, there was something there under a blanket. That could be the secondary device. It was not, luckily. But after a while, they decided that this place was not too safe, because 600 meters with a high-power rifle, you can shoot across. And as you know, the trial is going on at the moment. And he, Mr. Breivik, has actually said that he was thinking about starting to shooting at the ambulances on the other side of the bay. He did not do it. So, this is where they started. This is Utøya, you see down here. And this is where they starting to take people in. Then they moved everything up here to that area here, which is supposed to be safe. And also, there is no place down here for helicopters. Up here we have, this is a golf course. There's plenty of place to land helicopters. The problem was, from when the youngsters come up, there were a lot of them. We are talking many people who was more or less nude. They have taken up the clothes just in the underwear. They're cold. Somebody was unhurt, other got multiple gunshots. So a lot of youngsters was actually on the road. So when our bus come, as one of the first units up on the street, they decided just to open up the doors and fill it up with people. Usually you could take 25 sitting, 2 in stretchers. That's 27 people. There were 65 people in that bus. I just filled it up. You know, and what happened was that the driver took up his microphone and said, "Welcome to this Health Express. We will now take you to Sundvolden Hotel where you get some help. Have a nice trip." So that was a nice way of doing it. Yeah.
How far from where Utøya is to where your secondary landing spot for helicopters?
That's mile plus.
Mile plus.
Yeah. So actually from Utøya to the secondary landing, it's less than 2 kilometers and just over a mile. Yeah. And Sundvolden Hotel, which is a hotel you see up here, it's where we brought all the just wet and scary young people. That hotel is actually a conference hotel which has been wind down for the summer. This was in the summer holiday in Norway. Some guests was there, but basically the hotel was just running on idle. And suddenly, literally hundreds of people was coming in. So the people who stay there was giving the master key. Go to the rooms, get blankets, duvets, whatever. Come back. So when the young people come, they get a blanket around them or whatever. So that hotel saved the day. And they stay in operation for nearly a week. The problem was, how do you match the young people and their parents? That was the biggest problem. And of course, the road from Oslo to Utøya was congested with ambulances. And on top of that, all the cars going there and all the relatives trying to get there to find the loved ones. So traffic was a big problem. This is how it looked like down on the road. Congested. There was one experience they had with people who come swimming. They walked up from the water, you gave them a blanket, gave them a little hug, and they collapsed. So they found out that just give them the blanket, tell them walk up there. because you still run on adrenaline. So the moment they get some human touch, they just collapsed. So there here's your blanket, continue up. And again, we got all resources because we had the bombing in Oslo just an hour before. So all the units that was turned around again, get back. So we got all the resources we need, actually. The problem was to get out to Utøya because it was still shooting up there. There is still an investigation going on and why the police took so long to get out there. And there will be a report from the government this fall. Will be the official report of what happened. I'm not speculating anything, but he has more than 1 hour on his own out there killing people. So he went out there a couple of minutes after 5, and at 6:27 he was detained. The problem was that the rumor was that there were more than one shooter. There was actually maybe 3 shooters on the island. So still the area wasn't safe. At this time, our crew would like to get out there because the people who come ashore told them that there were wounded people actually on the island. So they started getting on the boat, and about 20 minutes past 7, they was allowed to get into the island and was then rushed into a house from the police. And the police said that everyone on the island now is dead. They had some wounded people in that house which were treated, but every people that was still on the island was dead. So our crew said that, well, shouldn't it be a health professional to decide if a patient is dead or not? And the police said that's a good idea. So, and still it wasn't safe. So one of our doctors or one of our paramedics was actually giving a police escort, 6 SWAT team members. Took them out around the island to look at every person that was shot. And it was very scary because cell phones had been lost. So while I was walking there, it was totally quiet. And suddenly a cell phone starting to light up, starting to ring. And what are you going to do? Are you going to answer it or leave it? And the picture you see here is actually 4 dead young people covered with blankets. And about 8:45 was the last patient taken out of the area, which was from the Sundvolden Hotel. That's the building on the island. And the picture you see here is taken from one of our crew with his cell phone. This moment, the perpetrator is actually on the first floor, being interviewed by the police. They are downstairs watching what to do. Still, they haven't been around the island. It was so confusing, so one of the police officers, he just left his MP5 on the floor and tell our crews, take care of this one. If you look closer, you see the roses. That's the symbol for the Labour Party and the symbol for peace. So here you see an MP5 which had just been using to apprehend a madman, and roses, a symbol for peace, together on the floor. And the killer was actually on the first floor, just above it. When he was apprehended, the police saw him, approached him, and they saw he had some wires over his vest. So they assumed he had a bomb vest on. So one of the police officers putting up his gun and was told to drop him. That means 2 bullets in the forehead. And they told him to stop. And the police have said that he's taken 1 or 2 more steps, they will shoot him. But then he stops, and also there was another police officer from the side who saw that it was his MP3 player's headphone. So he's about 2 steps away to being shot. His gun was on the ground. So in the end, 68 people was killed on the island. 66 of them was shot. What he did, he used his rifle. He used a Ruger Mini 14, 223, to stop them, shoot them on distance. Then he move in with his Ruger 9mm and get them headshots. So more or less everybody was shot at least once, and the one who died more or less instantly. So he was actually systematically going around shooting everybody at least once, 2, 3, 4 times. So in the court case now, young people coming up with multiple gunshots. There was a girl last week, she got shot in both her arms and to her jaw, and she survived. And she said that to the perpetrator in the court, "You lost, we survived because we could swim." That's strong from a young person, around 20 years old. One person died later in the hospital, so 69 people altogether died. Of those 68, 2 of them was not shot. One was just falling down a cliff and was killed. Another one actually drowned. 66 was brought to hospital, and about 500 survivors need help in the future. Yes?
Could you expand on that a little, please? 500 survivors. Do you mean there were 500 others that were wounded?
No, that was actually on the island, who was not wounded, who managed to get away.
Okay, you said who needed different levels of help. Was that
Yes,
medical or
psychiatric,
emotional? Okay,
yes,
thank you.
social. A lot of the young people was actually in their education, so the last school year has been very troublesome for them. Many actually had to drop out from schools and so on. And if you add on the families, we are talking about thousands of people who need some kind of help from society in the years to come.
You say you're part of a nationalized health system,
Yes,
but yet there are different dispatch centers for different ambulance services.
yes.
So at that point, if you have a large event in Oslo, do other dispatch centers know that's going on other than if they hear the news? And if
No,
not,
we
at that
call
time,
them.
have they changed it?
We call them. We have systems to call them, and of course we call the police and fire brigade. That's a part of the routine.
For all the surrounding areas?
Yes, of course we communicate. So again, when we talk about resources, we got a lot of resources. 42 ambulances, 6 air ambulance helicopters, 2 seeking helicopters. We got 2 buses, a lot of doctors, nurses and paramedic, and we got the hotel. So again, technically, it might not be a disaster, technically, because we got the equipment. But of course, nationally, it is a disaster. The problem here was actually to get out, to get your hand of the wounded on the island. That was the problem. The police did a lot of first aid on the island and probably saved a lot of life. The police medic was out there and they did a lot of work. So, what are we going to do now? I mean, this was on Friday. On the Saturday, there was a very strange feeling in Norway. Our small country, peaceful country, and this happened. This is the result of the power of Facebook. A couple of people thought that, we had to do something about it. So they started called people to get into Oslo on Monday to show that we do not want this to be a part of Norway. We want peace. So on Monday, we have the biggest gathering of people in Oslo since the Second World War. There was about 200,000 people in front of the town hall, this picture, and at least 50,000 people more in the streets. A quarter of a million people was in the street within 3 days of Facebook action. And the reply from the government, from the people, is no more police, no more force, no more weapon. It was about more openness, more democracy, more love. And also our crew would like to put out some flower. This is outside Oslo Cathedral. So they moved from our central Oslo station out there, and when they arrived, there was a lot of people standing between them and the flowers outside the cathedral. And suddenly the public starting to open up, so the group could walk all the way up to the flowers. It was absolutely still, very quiet. They put down the flowers. As you can see, the picture is very moving for them. Then somebody in the audience starting to sing the national anthem. Thousands of people were singing the national anthem. So it was a very, very touching moment. Some of the crew, when they go back to their vehicles, this is what I found. And some of the crew walked back to Oslo ambulance station. When this happened. One of the colleagues who walked in that group has said that I can't do this anymore. So we have said that, okay, I'm sick leave. He walked on that march, got back to the station and said, no, I understand what we have done. I want to get back to my shift. He understood actually what had happened. So, lesson learned. We are quite sure that nobody got hurt or died or whatever because of our job. We did the best we could, and other people have told us that the job we did was good. It's not best, but it's good. We need to improve something. First of all, our risk assessment wasn't close to what happened. It was something brand new to us. For the ambulance service or the pre-hospital services, we need to do something about equipment, our logistic. We have all the equipment needed, but it should be smarter. We have found out that we need to make a new group of paramedics which can do more of a rescue service. We can follow the fire brigade into buildings. Because now it was the fire brigade who has to go into the building and look at casualties and see if they was dead or alive. We need to have, be able to train people, get them the right equipment, get them in. The problem at the moment is money. Even if we are a rich country, we still haven't got any funding for it. But eventually it has to come. Communication. There is a guy in Canada who was asked, I can't remember his name now, but he's written a lot of stuff on emergency services. He was asked once, when does the communication fail? And his answer is, always. It's right. The first thing we felt was, within the first couple of minutes, there was an integration failure between two computer systems. Because the workload was so big, it's never been so big before. So that failed. The two systems works perfectly separately, but not together. That means that a lot of our timestamps were lost. We just introduced a new Terrorr radio system that works perfect. At Utøya, there was the old VFX system that also worked perfect. The problem was that our vehicle was carrying just handsets, and some of them has forgotten to charge that handset for a while, so they didn't have a handset that worked. The data communication between the ambulances and the control room is using 3G mobile phone system. And actually, in Oslo, the system was congested. Too many people using telephones. At Utøya, young people are using different kind of communication. So they were using Twitter, Facebook, SMS, MMS, mail, whatever, from their mobile devices, communicating with everyone around. And actually, many people call their parents up in northern Norway, 2,000 kilometers away, saying, we're being shot at. Someone tried to kill us. What does the parents do? Get up the local phone, dial local police, said, help! That local policeman, 2,000 kilometers away, for the first 15, 20 minutes, wasn't aware of what would happen at Utøya. Because when you make a phone call in Norway, you get to your local police district. So suddenly, a lot of police districts all around Norway was actually also congested with calls from concerned parents or relatives. And actually on Twitter there was a lot of communication, also on Facebook, about people actually lying out there, picking up their smartphone or using their iPad, sending messages, don't come out, send help, we're being shot at. Mobile phone system was in some period used about 100%. So that means that you have probably coming through. I tried to call my wife when I was in Oslo, and on the 5th, 6th try, I managed to come through to my wife. Some local control rooms, particularly on the police who runs the Utøya area, has only one officer in their control room when it happened, just one. And also the control room at the ambulances in Drammen, they had 3 operators, but they could get more people in very quickly, so they got sufficient staffing. Mobile phones. This is some picture. If you look at here, you see all people here that has a cell phone in their hand and using them. Everybody called somebody to tell them what happened. That means same happened in London when the bomb went off there. The system, people thought the mobile system doesn't work. That was wrong. The system was working at 100%. But the demand was 200%, so that's why I couldn't get through. Just to wrap up, there are 2 papers available online. The first one is an English document, a little bit about what happened. The second one is a Norwegian document, but there is a supplement in it in English. That's the evaluation report from the health itself, and they put together an international team of advisors to evaluate the report. So these 2 you can download from the internet and read if you like to get some more information. And to quote that girl on CNN, when one man could cause so much evil, think about how much love we can create together. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thanks.
So, questions?
Thank you for sharing. What kind of system in place do you guys have for triaging and treating the emotional injuries that the emergency responders certainly suffered?
We have a system where we got colleagues who are trained to take care of other colleagues. So what we did, on the Monday after the incident, we had a technical debrief where everybody who was involved was invited into a big auditorium where we just went through it technically. So everybody was on the same planet. On Wednesday and Thursday, all the crew was invited, mandatory, to join other colleagues to discuss what they have been going through. And after that, more or less everybody was fine. There was a couple of people who need some more follow-up. And today, everybody's back in full service. Nobody quit the service, and hopefully nobody will lose their sleep over it now. Any more questions? thank you for letting me come. I hope you get some ideas and some knowledge about this, and hope you can use it to something positive.
Well, thank you, Ronald. Thank you for making the trip all the way here.
Mm.
We've had some time this morning to run a couple calls and actually had an opportunity to meet one of our crews out on a call. We met Angela and Aaron on 1141, and after we spent some time with them, got in our truck, my vehicle, and drove away, looking at each other, laughing at the realization how similar we are. We are the same, whether we're here in the States, whether we're in Scandinavia, we're paramedics. And it's really a joy. So Ronald, I want to just give you one little trinket here from all of us here. It's just a coin,
Oh,
and it represents
excellent.
the fact that we are together, even in our separation, as we work toward this goal of safety and providing the finest in EMS care that we can. Ronald, thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, everybody, for watching. And y'all, don't forget, your certificates are on the table back there.
And I found out one thing: we are from the same tribe. We got the same humor, same mindset, low practical jokes. So, I mean, we are the same tribe. Maybe some different language, but in the end, we are the same tribe.
And everybody doesn't like the control center no matter where you go.
Thank you, sir. You confirmed it. What we done, we actually putting paramedics in our control room. And we say in Norway that you're meeting yourself in the door. Okay? So that's great. So any question? I mean,
You had mentioned that the police had taken care of some of the people out on the island.
yes,
Do they have medics assigned to their SWAT team?
yes,
They do.
yeah.
Is this it's a law enforcement, not a military team, or
It's law enforcement.
law enforcement?
Yes. Actually, they have some of the wounded has shots in the extremities, and the police have used tourniquets. Yes. Some of the problem they had when they come ashore was actually pain because of no oxygen to the limbs. And actually, some of the anesthesiologists, instead of starting to treating the pain, they decided to let the blood come back in. Because the moment you're starting to treat hypoxic pain in the limb, you need very big doses of drugs. So taking a patient that is what we can call a code 2, make them into an intensive care patient there on the beach. So they open up for the blood flow a little bit to make the pain go away. That works. That's controversial what was done, but in the end they told me that they did.
Well, they're mostly young people though too.
Yes.
So they could handle
Yep. I think they stopped recording, haven't they?
No, we're still going.
It's still going. Oh, good. Okay, fine. No problem. Yes.
A question on your triage. In the Tucson, Arizona shooting a year ago, they said their standardized triage system failed them. And what they reverted to was the expertise of the paramedics and the fire medics that you're really bad, you are not really bad, you're going. But that the standardized triage system failed them. In Japan, during the tsunami and the radiation exposure, it was so overwhelming that the triage system collapsed, and it was simply living versus dead.
Yes.
In Oslo, were there not enough victims that it became a problem for you, or how did your triage system fail you or support you?
One of the problem in Norway, small country, 5 million people, we cannot agree on one system. Yeah. So they're still arguing what kind of system to use. What happened in Oslo was that actually there was only so few patients. What happened was that one of the ambulance actually had a dead person on board. That patient was taken out of the ambulance and an injured person was put in. That I think was the only time there was a discussion about what to do, because we got all resources we need. But at the moment, one of the problems, we do not have a triage system that's nationally, and that's a problem because the triage system has to work from the street all the way into the hospital or through the hospital. At the moment, hospital is using one triage system, we are using another one, and our neighboring ambulance service are using a third one. We are working on it. That's one other thing we had to look at.
Ronald, this morning we had an opportunity to talk to one of our paramedics who is a military paramedic for us. And you had a chance to tell her a little bit about how you handle specialty care transport or critical care transport in Norway and the abilities that you have to countrywide bring your critical care team to there utilizing the air services. Can you explain that?
Yes, if you got time, I'll show you a very quick video.
While he's
Yes,
queuing that
yeah.
up, I'll just explain real quick. I learned about it when I was visiting him, and he took me to the bay at the station that his office is housed at, that also has 2 helicopters, and we're looking at a Sprinter ambulance, and he said, "Here, you must see this," and there's tie-downs welded to the bottom of this Sprinter ambulance. And he explained to me, and he'll show you in this video, I hope, that on their critical care events, they literally load their Sprinter, drive their Sprinter with their critical care crew into the back of a C-130 and fly it to the destination. Offload it and go receive the patient at the hospital or wherever, bring it back into the C-130 and tether it in place so that while it's tethered, it's also synced up with the aircraft for oxygen, power, and everything. But the crew stays in their secure and safe environment. It was brilliant. Angela loved it, and she's trying to move to Norway. So she's working on that Norwegian language right now.
Yep. This is from 2005, so we got a new car. It's a cooperation between the hospitals. This was before we merged the hospitals. So it's actually 3 hospitals, 2 of the hospitals and the Air Force 325 Squadron. Here we are on the other end, getting the vehicle out. This is basically for ECMO transfer. And we then very usually send the ECMO team out with one of our smaller ambulance plane first. And actually, this time we brought the team with us, so the patient is actually being attached to an ECMO, actually in the intensive care unit. So this have a very long sequence of how to put on an ECMO. Just do like this. Now the patient is on ECMO, and every time the patient is on an ECMO, is stable. So you can take the time. So in many cases, we send a team out, they put the patient on ECMO, and we wait until the Air Force can get us on an airplane. That can take up to 12 to 18 hours. This is the old system, the big ECMO. So we have 1 stretcher with the equipment, 1 stretcher with the patient. And the only thing that's in between there is actually the tube for the ventilator. This is the old ambulance and the old system, but the same principle. Because one of the most critical part of this kind of transport is loading the patient and unloading the patient from the ambulance. So when you can do that only once, you load the patient and leave the patient in the ambulance until you are at the other end. The only thing you attach is gas, oxygen, compressed air, and power. Go on.
Back to triage a little
Yes.
bit. You mentioned only 10 patients went to the hospital and 80 to the walk-in clinic.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, What's the cutoff for someone to get into the hospital as opposed to the clinic, and what are the capabilities and size of your walk-in clinics for
The
patients?
walk-in clinic is huge. It takes a lot of, everybody can get in there for, they will plaster up your ankle, your wrist, they do stitch, suturing, a lot of stuff. They take x-rays. Of those 80 plus going there, only 2 was transferred further on to hospital later on. So this was working. Just speeding up a little bit. So here we are, inside. Have to tether it down. So in flight, we do basically the same we can do in the intensive care unit. We had blood gas. You see the blood gas unit. We can actually measure blood gases. Yes, that's my baby. And always a lot of equipment. And as we drive down to that hospital who can treat patients on ECMO for a long time, and so far no fatalities during transport of ECMO patient. This is the old ambulance. We're still using that ambulance today, which has 2 stretchers. We use 1 stretcher for the equipment and 1 stretcher for the patient. Again, the only anything between those 2 stretchers are the tubes. So actually, sometimes we just disconnect the tube for a short moment because the patient is on ECMO. So he's breathing to the ECMO. And we also work very hard to find a system to move the patient from the stretcher to the bed. So we have a routine on that to actually transfer the patient with the ECMO on the stretcher over to the bed and then put the patient on the new ECMO on the hospital. So that's it.
I'm curious, folks in the audience, what do you think of the uniforms? They should stand out. They're very bright. They're orange.
Red.
Red.
Yes.
Thoughts?
Good on safety.
Good on safety.
Yes.
Not high marks for staff.
There is a regulation in Europe called EN 471, which is, has 3 classifications of visibility clothing. And for the ambulance service, we are using category 2, which means that you need a half square meter of fluorescent material, which is either yellow or orange. And you need 0.12 square meters of reflective material. So, and we don't believe everybody's taking on the tubard, so we give them jackets which are also yellow. So they put on the jacket, they're also putting on the color. And also, as the picture shows here, we helmets. We are using a smaller helmet than a fire helmet, much more narrower, much more light, and also our crew is not supposed to go into a fire, so why do you have to buy a fire helmet that is heat resistant? This is for rescue. So it's actually a lighter helmet as well. So.
Okay. Again, thank you.
Very well. Thank you very much.